All right, hello. Today I want to talk to you guys about a guide I put together for leveling a priest in Classic WoW. I think there's a lot of guides on the internet for leveling a priest in Classic WoW, but for whatever reason, a lot of them tend to be minorly wrong, or in the case of alternative leveling builds like Holy, extremely wrong. So I thought today I would put together a guide and show you how to play or level a priest. So let's talk about it. So priest class overview. At max level, priests are essentially just healers at max level. They do have DPS specs. You could go Smite or you could go Shadow. Both of them are pretty bad. You're going to be doing a third, a quarter, maybe a half of a warrior's damage if you're lucky. And you're not going to have AoE damage. You're going to be mana starved. It is brutal. You're not very good. But when it comes to healing, you are the best healer in the game, at least when it comes to healing output. Shamans obviously have some utility with their Wind Fury totem, but no one matches you in healing output, and no one matches you even close in healing variety. You have every type of heal under the sun in situations where other healers can't do it. For instance, like if you're in a gauntlet, like an AQ, and you need to run and heal, you can cast Renew, like a druid can cast Rejuve, but like a druid can't do anything. A shaman can't do anything. So you're a really good class. You have a heal for every situation. If you need to be mana efficient, you need to be fast, you need to snipe, you need to whatever. You have a heal for every situation, and you should be topping the healing meters every time. So race doesn't really matter as much while leveling. So a lot of this kind of applies at endgame, but I'll go over this anyway. So as you can tell from the tier list, it's a bit of a joke I put together, almost naming the top tier dwarf, but it is true. Dwarves are by far the best priests in Classic WoW, and it's not even close. You get 3 active abilities as a priest from your race. So normally you get one, so like dwarves get stone form, and everyone gets stone form no matter what class you pick. But as a priest, you get 2 more. So for instance, dwarf gets Fear Ward and Desperate Prayer. Both of those are really good spells. Desperate Prayer is a free lay on hands on yourself. Stone form can purge off like crippling poison or devouring plague or a bunch of other stuff on you, or a bunch of other raid poisons. Raid poisons are actually pretty common. So dwarf is every single ability dwarf has is really good, and Fear Ward is broken in Classic WoW. In like TBC, it gets up to like a 5-minute cooldown, and it is 30 seconds in Classic WoW. Imagine having Will of the Forsaken on a 30-second cooldown that you can give to anyone. It is absolutely busted. If you're not playing dwarf, it really doesn't matter what you play because honestly, they're not as good. If you're playing on Horde, Undead's better for PvP. Troll is better for PvE just because Troll gets berserking. The rest of them don't really matter, to be honest. So let's talk about leveling builds. This is sort of the reason I put this build together, because a lot of people only think you can level a Shadow, or think that Shadow is clearly head and shoulders above Holy in terms of damage or mana efficiency. You're just griefing if you pick Holy, which isn't true. So you can kind of see some pros and cons on the slide there, but just to kind of go over it, if you are going to be doing, and you know you're going to be doing a lot of group healing while you're leveling, Holy really is the better spec. The healing talents you're going to get not only benefit you at max level, you're going to be like a raid spec healer at mid levels, and you're going to have way more efficient healing. You're going to have faster heals. You're going to be immune to knockback on your heals. It is really good for healing, and pretty much no one does better healing than you while leveling than a Holy spec priest. The benefit of Shadow is a really good spec for solo leveling. If you are leveling by yourself, it is definitely better than Holy, but it's not really because it does more damage. A lot of people think Shadow just does more damage than Holy, and that's really not the case. They just do more efficient damage. You're not going to put out the damage faster, but you're going to spend less mana to do it, and you also boost the damage of your wand. A lot of people don't know that. I think Shadow Form and Shadow Weaving definitely does it. I think Shadow Form does it. It might be Nightmare. They boost your wand damage, so you're going to be getting a 25% bonus wand damage by just being Shadow spec, as long as you have a Shadow Wand, which is really effective because a lot of your wands are going to be Shadow, at least in the mid levels. So either one, no matter which build you start off with, you're going to be starting off leveling as Discipline, because neither of those builds really take off until you have like the final 4 or 5 talents, and you kind of need the whole build for them to really alter how you're going to play Priest. Until that point, like, you can get those marginal benefits, but they're not really going to move the needle. They're not really going to impact your leveling as a Priest until you complete the full 40 points or whatever. So until then, you might as well go a generalist priest spec such as Discipline. So to kind of call out the key talents here, I kind of highlighted key talents, like talents. If you want to rearrange this build at all, just make sure you get the stuff in green and orange, and everything else is sort of up to you. I would still recommend getting these because it improves your damage and everything like that, but it's up to you. To call out what the synergistic talent means, a lot of people don't really understand how meditation and spirit tap work. They just kind of know spirit tap as the ability that gives you mana when you kill something. So just to go over this, spirit tap doubles your spirit, which is what determines your base mana regeneration. And meditation gives you 15% mana regen while in combat. So to give you an example, let's say you were getting 100 mana per tick, right? Which is unreasonable, by the way, but let's just say that's what you're getting. If you have Spirit Tap, then in combat, you're going to be getting 100 mana regen, and out of combat, you're getting 200 mana regen while Spirit Tap is active. If you have Meditation and not Spirit Tap, you're going to get 15 mana regen per tick in combat and get 100 mana regen per tick out of combat. If you have both of them, a lot of people would think, oh, like 50% higher, you only get 100%, or maybe you get 115% with that. You actually get 130%. Because, again, Spirit Tap does not increase your mana regen. It doubles your spirit and then gives you 50% of that spirit-based mana regeneration during combat. So what that means that if you had 100 mana regen, you would double it up to 200 and get 50%, so 100, right? But then get 15% of that 200 mana regen during combat with meditation. So you actually get 130% of your base mana regen while Spirit Tap is active and you are in combat. So meditation is actually still not that good of a talent because you don't really have as much in combat time as you might think, but it is still good. It is still relevant. You're definitely going to want to pick it up. So let's talk about shadowing. This is sort of one everyone knows. There's actually a lot of like kind of critical spells or critical talents, I should say, you need to get as shadow. So the build kind of writes itself, but just to go over it, the biggest one you need to pick up is Spirit Tap, and then obviously Shadow Weaving, Nightmare, and Shadow Form. It's not really obvious here. You only really need 2 or 3 points in this. You don't need to get all 5. At 2 points, you're going to max out against mobs that are same level or 1 level higher than you. And if you're at 3 points, you're going to be good against 2 levels higher, and have a little bit of extra against mobs more than that. You really shouldn't be fighting mobs more than 3 levels higher than you because they're going to be like red to you and you're going to be getting partial resists and everything like that. And again, you can watch that video for more information on the math there. But Shadow primarily is good because of the mitigation you get and the efficient damage you're going to do. Because Mind Flay in particular is a weirdly mana efficient spell in the Priest toolkit. It is a very mana efficient for the damage you do, especially once you get the rank at rank 44. Now, a lot of people, and I call this out in the guide, will say you really shouldn't respec to Shadow until 44 because you're not going to get like that rank of Mind Flay, or that rank of Mind Flay is not very good. The Mind Flay rank you get at like 36 or 38 or whatever it is kind of dog shit until you get that new rank and you're better off wanding and blah blah blah. But when you at 40, you're going to get your full Shadow Build online. You're going to get that extra wand damage you're going to get out of your Shadow Wands, which you're going to be using Shadow Wands at these levels. So you might as well respec and boost your wand damage. That's my opinion, at least. All right, Holy. So Holy leveling, if you look up a Holy leveling guide, like 80% of them are just don't understand how the talents work, and they give you bad guides. So let's go over how this actually works. The key talent to keep in mind here, first off, this line here is what you need to get when you're leveling Holy. Everything else just boosts your healing. This line is the damage line, and this is the like juice line. The biggest one, though, is Spiritual Guidance. So the way Spiritual Guidance works is it gives 25% of your spirit as spell power. So if you have 200 spirit, which is a good baseline you're trying to hit, like at level 40, if you've been aggressively pursuing spirit, you should have around 200, maybe 180. But so at 200 spirit, you're going to get 50 spell power, right? At 180, you're going to get 45. That's already really good. A lot of people kind of write that off, but that's already at like 10, 12%, maybe 15% bonus damage on all your spells, depending on what level you are and what rank of spells you have. So it's actually pretty good just by itself right there. But the real power comes in with Spirit Tap. Again, a lot of people don't really think about the way Spirit Tap is worded. They just think about it gives you mana. Spirit Tap doubles your spirit and then gives you 50% of your spirit-based mana regeneration in combat. So what that means is while Spirit Tap is active, you actually get double spell power from Spiritual Guidance. So if your Spiritual Guidance was normally giving you, say you had 200 spirit, 50 spell power, you would get 100 spell power during Spiritual Guidance or during Spirit Tap, which getting 100 spell power at like level 42 is absolutely bonkers. And it is really what makes Holy a very viable leveling build, because that extra damage, you don't have to spend more mana for that damage. You just get more damage. So you get more mana efficient, you do more damage, you do damage faster. And during Spirit Tap, you actually burst faster than Shadow as well. And even without it, it's really close. And towards the later levels, you will do more damage as Holy anyway. Other than that, something to call out is the Shadow Word Pain and how Shadow Word Pain works. So Shadow Word Pain by itself, with the 18 seconds and not having improved Shadow Word Pain, is only marginally more mana efficient than just casting Smite. And it is pretty much never more mana efficient than Holy Fire unless you have improved Shadow Word Pain. Now, it is not unreasonable to get improved Shadow Word Pain as a Holy Priest. You could take 2 points out of Holy Reach and get that after you finish up these 39 talents that you put in these 5 here, and just 40 and 41 you put into that, and you get more of it. And if you get that 7th and 8th tick off, it's definitely worth for Shadow Word Pain. But even if you do have that, it is not worth it to cast Shadow Word Pain as a Holy Priest unless you get all 6 ticks of Shadow Word Pain off. If you don't get all 6 ticks off, it is better to just cast Holy Fire and Smite, which means most of the time you are just going to be casting Holy Fire and Smite, because you're going to kill mobs faster than that, because Holy actually does some good burst damage. Because something also, I'll go over this more in a bit, both Holy spells, Holy Fire and Smite, can crit, which is not something Shadow has. Shadow Word Pain and Mind Flight cannot crit. So if you have like a world buff that increases your crit damage or crit percent chance, it actually doesn't help Shadow like much at all. So you actually scale much better with stats like that than Shadow does. All right, let's talk about some damage comparisons. I think a lot of people just kind of hear me rant about this stuff, or we'll see the rant and then not think it's real. So let's talk about how the math actually works. I originally had all the damage calculations in here to show you how it worked and how the 2-roll system works for casting a spell and damaging and blah, 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 and partial resist. It took up like half the page, so I decided that's just too much. So I linked a good video series on it that Stay Safe put out before Classic launched. So the operative parts to look at here is the damage and the time and the mana it costs to do that damage, right? Obviously, you can tell for 45 spell power, you're really not doing that much damage. You're doing quite a bit more damage as a Shadow Priest than a Holy Priest who's trying to be mana efficient while casting Shadow Word Pain and blitzing down mobs, right? Shadow, obviously getting more damage to that Shadow Word Pain, it's going to be more beneficial to you. Most of the time, you're actually not going to be casting that, so I decided to include the 10-second burst, which is sort of the other extreme, where you're just not even casting Holy Fire because it's more damage to cast Smite. And you can see, even with the 45 spell power, it's actually very close. This is less than 100 damage away. It's like 80 damage off. And if you have Spirit Tap active, you're actually doing more damage per burst, just more DPS as a Holy Priest. And honestly, even if Shadow had bonus spell power, it really wouldn't matter that much, because Shadow spells scale terribly with spell power. A lot of people don't really know this. Mind Blast and Mind Flay scale at a 45% and 41% ratio, respectively. It is absolutely terrible. To give some comparison, Smite scales at a 71% ratio, and Holy Fire scales at a 100% ratio. I mean, 25% is on the dot, and that dot can't crit, but it still scales way better. You're still getting way more spell power out of those spells. And for more comparison, like, if you compare Shadow, which scales at 45%, and almost none of their spells crit, to like a mage where like a fireball scales at 100% ratio and can crit, and they have all these damage multipliers, or like Warlock, who I think it's around the same amount. Frostbolt, I think, even scales at 81%. The scaling on Shadow is just absolute dog water. So it's one of the biggest things holding back Shadow. And it's actually a primary reason that as you get more gear, Smite Priest probably is a better raid damage spec than Shadow. But it's still terrible, so, like, who cares? So, yeah. Actually, I'm just going to call out one more thing. I bring this up at the bottom. The number one takeaway here, when you're actually looking at this, in a real-world scenario, the damage you do and the time it takes to kill mobs is actually going to be very comparable between the two. The real difference is just the mana you had to spend to kill those. But that usually doesn't even matter that much in a real-world scenario, which I'll show you later. All right, so let's talk about gearing and wand progression. So wand progression is by far the biggest part of your gearing as a priest. So I figured I would take the time to call out some of your bigger wands. So a lot of people, when they put together these guides on wand progression, they'll have like just like a database printout of 70 wands and the levels to get them at and blah, blah, blah. And you're not going to get 80% of those, and you don't need to get 80% of those. So I figured I would just call out the 4 you actually should target. And really, it's just the first 3 that are the critical ones. So Lesser Magic Wand and Greater Magic Wand are crafted wands. You can buy them in the auction house. Even if you're doing solo sell found and you're not using the auction house, it is not hard to craft these wands. For those of you who don't know, Lesser Magic Wand, it takes about 60 linen, if you have tailoring and enchanting, to craft the green robes you need to get to the level you need to get to craft the green robes, and then craft the green robes, disenchant them, use that to level in your enchanting, and create Lesser Magic Wand. And then for Greater Magic Wand, after you get that 60 linen you need to make Lesser Magic Wand, it's only about 120 more linen to get Greater Magic Wand after that. And it's really not that much. Like, if you're doing like a regular leveling route, like let's say you're a human or something, just sit in the Kobold Cave for a level at like level 7. You'll get 3 stacks of linen, and then like level 12, like just go kill Trogs and Lochmadan for a level, and you'll get plenty to make the Greater Magic Wand. And those are literally like, you're just going to be going there anyway. You might as well, right? The only people it might be hard for is like Orc Troll and probably Dwarf, because you kill a lot of beasts on those leveling routes. But even still, there's trolls in the Dwarf lands, and there's orcs in whatever the evil Burning Blade clan or whatever it is in the Orc control territories. You can make it work. The biggest wand upgrade you need, though, is the Gravestone Scepter. These are, by the way, very oversetted wands for the levels you can get them at, but the Gravestone Scepter is absolutely oversetted for the level you get it at. This wand, if you're looking at like a database of all the wands, just looks like someone took a level like 38 wand and gave it to level 19s. It is absurdly strong for the level you get it at, and it absolutely carries Priest in the 20s. So you can get this at 19 technically, because that's the earliest you could get the quest and enter BFD, but you really shouldn't be running BFD until you're like in your mid like 23, 24, 25 kind of range. And that's like the earliest I would do it. I'd try to have everyone else in the group a little bit higher than that. But as a healer, you can be a little bit less. But you want to get this as early as you can. The earliest you can reasonably get into BFD and run this quest and get this wand is going to be huge, because this wand just does so much damage. And notably, it's also a shadow wand. So when you are shadow spec'd, it will get increased damage from those spells, which is pretty critical. And BFD also gives you a bunch of really good stuff, so like Rod of the Sleepwalker, Leech Plants. This ring isn't that good, but you get it as a quest reward. It's guaranteed. You might as well grab it, right? There's this neck here. A lot of the necks don't really have spirit on them, so I figured I'd call this one out. It's a quest in the Wrathy Highlands. It's a pretty hard quest, but you can still do it. The Sivanad robes and Nomer. There's actually some good Nomer drops, like the headpiece off the last boss and a couple other ones. But the Sivanad robes just have a ton of spirit on them, so it's pretty good. But if you don't get any like good upgrades, just in your 30s and 40s, buy the Black Mage Weave set. It is just every piece has a ton of spirit on it. The gloves don't, but the gloves have a ton of spell power on them, so it's actually pretty good. And again, if you're holy, that spell power actually does matter quite a bit. If you're shadow, it matters less, but either way, it's good. By the way, the robes in this set are better than the vest, even though I know everyone wants the vest for the Slutmog, but the robes are significantly better. Well, not significantly, but they are better. And then a lot of people have all these things like in level 46, you want to get this, and 47, and go run Sunken Temple and blah, blah, blah. You don't really need to do that. Once you're at past level 42, you're going to be doing so many quests per level, because it takes you progressively longer per level to get to the next level, that you're going to be getting inundated with wands anyway. And you're going to naturally get upgrades. You're going to run Sunken Temple and get that 50 DPS wand off the last boss or whatever, right? There's a lot of wands that drop past this level, and you don't really need to target anything. You're going to be getting your wands anyway, so you don't really have to worry about it. You'll get those, and if you need to, you can look up a database guide if you want to target one, but you don't need to. So all of that was just me talking about it, so let's see it in action. So this is my priest. When I was leveling on White Mane, my priest is level 42. And I'm going to show you the same exact spot, same exact character, same gear, same level, but as holy immediately after this. So this is just going to show you what it's like leveling as Shadow, and sort of the damage you're going to do and how long it's going to take. And I think the biggest thing to take away from this video is just watch this number in the top left here, right? And you're going to kind of see that for the majority of the Shadow mobs that die, we're going to end combat around the low 100s or so. This will probably be like 110, 116 or something like that. Also, my wand is not optimal. I should have the Blackbone wand here. I just have some random fire wand on because I didn't know at the time that the shadow wand damage was increased. So keep that in mind. This is technically slightly not optimal, but like I don't do that much wand damage, so it's not that big of a deal. Maybe it'd be like 115 or 120 or something on average, or like 130. Who knows? Maybe not that high, but yeah. Just kind of watch this. So like we've killed like 2-3 mobs so far. Gonna kill these 2. I'm gonna kind of skip through this a bit because we don't need to watch it, but and I kill this mob. You're gonna see this one's a bit lower.
It's still recharging.
All right, and so that was probably like 5 or 6 mobs. I think I started around 45 seconds. I guess I think after this one it'll be 6 mobs or so I've killed. So let's kind of watch this mob go down, doing damage. Ends around 100, 110, whatever damage, right? And I started killing mobs around 45 seconds, so about 2 minutes, maybe a little less to kill 6-7 mobs. So let's go swap over to Holy and see what that's like. So here's the same priest, again, same gear. This is level 42, just to show you level 42, and then showing you the spell power I'm getting from spiritual guidance. And again, just to point out, like it is not hard to get this much spirit in the low 40s. This is not optimal gear. This is not Black Mage Weave. You can see I have the Rod of the Sleepwalker. I don't have the pants. I don't have a lot of good pieces of gear. This is just kind of a bunch of random gear, and I am a human, so I do have that extra spirit, but it's really not that big of a deal. You can get more spirit and have 60, 70, maybe not 70, but like 60 base spell power pretty easily. So yeah, here I am. I'm gonna go start killing mobs, and this first mob you're gonna kind of see me do it with Shadow Word Pain, and this is kind of just showing you that like most of the time when you're leveling as Holy, just don't even cast Shadow Word Pain. It's really not worth it. You're never going to get off. You might get off all 6 ticks, but like most of the time you won't. So unless you're like and you know you're going to get off all the ticks because you just don't have the mana to cast Smite and kill it fast, like just don't bother. It's just not worth it. See here, I didn't cast Smite, just casted. I didn't cast Shadow of Pain, I should say. And again, look at the numbers in the top left. Most of the time when you're killing things as Holy, the number is going to be the same or more than what you saw as Shadow. And that's just because, like look at this one. This one's going to end 160, right? Now, there is a bit of a cheat, it is a bit of a cheated number because Holy Fire is precasted for 3 seconds, and then the timer starts for this combat. But if you're a hardcore character, that's like the time you care about anyway, right? You don't care about how long it took to cast the first spell. It cares about how long you're in combat because it's how much damage you're taking and everything. That one was 100. But either way, I think this one you see I'm 41% mana. I don't have that much resources right now. My shield's about to run out, but I'm getting some smites in. I'm going to kill this guy, get my Spirit Tap going again before I go on to the next guy. Spirit Tap, by the way, because you get extra spell power, will actually improve the efficacy of your shield, so you get more health on it. It's not that big of a deal, but it does help. You can see I did Shadow Word Pain this mob because I am and I don't have all the mana to cast, but you can see every tick I'm getting like 5% of my mana back. You get a lot of mana back doing this. So was that like I think that was 5-6 mobs. I don't really have one near me, but we'll say after this mob over here. I cast Shadow Word Pain. I probably shouldn't have here. And we'll see. Ooh, I got a resist. That will happen a couple more times when you're Holy because you don't have the... Actually, it wouldn't matter at this level. 248. So I think the last one was a little over 2 minutes. This one's also a little over 2 minutes. You can see. So in practice, and this is with a drink, so I technically had less resources as Shadow, but in practice, the actual leveling speed, at least when you're fighting mobs that are like same level or less, kind of like the easy mobs, your leveling speed is going to be pretty much identical between both specs. Shadow really only does significantly better when you're talking about mobs that are significantly higher and you have that extra hit because Holy doesn't get hit talents. And then if you have world buffs or something like that, you're obviously going to do way better as Holy, but you're very rarely going to have world buffs while you're leveling. Unless you're on a super popular with server like White Maid, you can go back to anywhere and get world buffs like every 10 seconds. They drop them all the time. Anyway, yeah, so that was the guide. Hopefully you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys later. Catch you guys later.